I was assigned to the USS Indianapolis early 1944, the most beautiful ship in the Navy.
Took the component parts of the atomic bomb to Tinian, where we dropped off, which was put on the roller gate. We left Tinian, we went to Guam to fuel up. From there we left to go to Leyte in the Philippines. We were there, we were sunk. We spent 4 days and 5 nights in infested shark waters.
It isn't anything I want to forget, but I don't want to dwell on it either.
A few minutes after midnight, I was rudely awakened by a lot of noise and tremendous shaking of the ship.
I knew something hit it. Figured it was a torpedo.
We had 2 torpedoes hit the ship. One blew off from 30, 40, 50 feet off the bow. The other one hit midship, which the aviation gasoline was stored in the 8-inch powder room. So there was a second big explosion of the ship. The ship was 610 feet long, and it sank in 12 minutes.
Sheer chaos. The only way I can describe it. Everybody yelling, screaming, nobody knew what was going on or nothing.
Like everybody else running around. They didn't run very long. Somebody said, "You better get a life jacket on." And I said, "No, I'm not going to worry about that yet." But I did, right quick.
I had immediately got up, got dressed, and put on my rubber life belt, which wraps around the waist. I went forward on the signal bridge as far as I could. And there I heard the most terrible screaming of a man who was in the compartment below me, who was being cremated alive. And within a few seconds, the ship made a sort of a lurch to the starboard and going down by the bow.
The ship was going down, I got off. I had to swim off the ship. No use staying on sinking ship.
And the captain came down from the navigational bridge. There was some discussion, and pretty soon the word was passed verbally to abandon ship.
I got off the ship and I turned around and looked, and the ship was just starting to go all the way down.
I went down to the gangwalk and jumped into the ocean waters below me. When I came up, I thought, "Oh my God, what is this?" Of course, I started swimming, and it was about 1.5 to 2 inches of fuel oil, black, tarry-like substance. And here, of course, the fuel tanks had leaked all this oil. It was floating on the surface, and all the men who had jumped off the ship on the port side was laying into that oil. So I was covered, the head to foot, I want to say, with oil in my clothes, my dungarees, which I had on. And that stayed with me pretty much for the full time that I was in the water. Finally, after clearing the oil, I swam a little bit more and then stopped and turned and looked, and the ship was standing vertically in the water. and I watched it go down a little at a time. Pretty soon it disappeared, and there was nothing but ocean.
What were your thoughts of how you were gonna be saved or survive out there?
Nobody. No, I got a K-Pop life jacket. They only lasted about 2 days, 2 or 3 days. And they'd go down with you. Just water and guys swimming. There was always guys around swimming.
It was very dangerous to be in a crowd of people. These guys were hallucinating because they drank salt water, and when they drink salt water, you go crazy, and they'd attack each other. That brought the sharks because of bleeding in the water brings the sharks.
Heard screams for help in the darkness, and at that point I was alone for a while, and I kept hearing these screams, and I started swimming towards these screams, and eventually come across another sailor in a jacket, and another one. There were about, I'd say, about 8 of us. But anyway, pretty soon, after bouncing up and down and hanging on to this floater net, somebody regurgitated. And then another one, and another, and soon I regurgitated. Everybody got seasick. The man next to me called a shark. So we all in the vicinity start beating the water and screaming, trying to make a noise to scare the shark away. Well, that happened 5 times that morning within an hour. So the first day wasn't too bad. I ran into a signalman called Johnny Diamond, a young fella, and her eyes were hurting terribly with probably some oil residue and salt in the eyes. And I suggested, let's lick each other's eyes out, and we did, and that remedied the situation. We licked the oil out. Thereafter, I didn't have any eye pain. What bothered us in the water was the sun. There were 1,000,000 suns reflected from the water. In relation to the sun, it was just constant sunlight reflection. It burned us tremendously, particularly in the face, and we couldn't wait for the sun to go down.
Days which were long though.
Were you aware that there was no Mayday or anything sent off?
They never came.
Sometime on Wednesday, run into another signalman, Frankie Centazzo. We stayed together on late Wednesday, and Thursday morning, I knew that I was dying and I wouldn't be alive the next day. And I told him, I said, Frank, I can't make another day. I'm only 19 and a half and I don't want to die. And then I started to cry. And it wasn't maybe a half hour after that or an hour, we heard this tremendous roar. And I looked over to my right, and there was this bomber.
We were having problems with the antenna. So Chuck asked the co-pilot to take over, and he went back. And as he was looking down, he saw the oil slick out in the ocean. He saw the submarine had gone down. And as he went down and he got a little closer, he saw the men waving their hands.
They could see that all those bumps were men in the water. I think they referred to them in the radio transmission, ducks on the pond. I got out to the fringe of these survivors, and I saw this TBY, which had landed in the water, go by. I could just see the top of him, and he eventually swung around, and they said, let's put him up on the wing. Eventually, I awakened, and I was tied down on the wing. It was probably close to midnight. Alongside of me were other survivors, both directions. So I don't know if he had about 25 or 30 survivors tied down on the wing so they wouldn't slide off. Eventually, the Doral arrived on the scene.
Ladies, flag nights. I remember that. They woke me up. They put me in a basket and hauled me up over the side of the ship.
And took us to Palau. There was a hospital there. And en route, they had given us soft ice cream. That was the first food we had gotten. And believe me, that was almost heaven.